This is Dennis with Builder Academy from builderresources.com. This session I'm going to be exploring the EstimatorPro database. Let's start with the definition of a database. It's a structured set of data held in a computer and accessible in various ways. Now we're going to be looking at how the EstimatorPro database fits this definition. But let's start with an overview of the relationship between the database and the estimate. One of the major strengths of the EstimatorPro application is the way in which the database and the estimate are synchronized. The individual estimator is not locked into a single database that dictates how the program must be used, but there can be many different relationships between the estimate and the database. You can have one database feeding many estimates. And this is a scenario that most people are going to be using. You can also have one database feeding one estimate. And this is usually the case when you have a very unusual specification set or different processes that the buyer wants you to be using when you build his project. You can also have several databases available for any one estimate that you're going to be working with. You simply choose the database that most closely fits the specifications that you need and then build your estimate from that database. You can also have sequential databases feeding many estimates. This is most often used when you want to do a price change and don't want to have your previous estimates impacted by changes in the pricing. And you'll have a specific set of estimates that relate to those sequential databases. When you create a new database, it's important that you know how to save it and so that it is readily accessible to you. One of the best ways is to use the electronic file structure in which you build at the C drive or whichever drive you're going to use a file in your company's name, and then at least these three: the team members, management tools, and projects. And you're going to put the databases in the management tools section. Now that page on the website can be found by going to project and to electronic file structure. You'll find there a suggested structure for your files and also a video on how to build that electronic file structure. Here is how I have set up mine. It's on my C drive, my construction company, management tools, EstimatorPro databases, and then those databases are located here. I have built one for Denver jobs, one that is my general usage that started on 6/16 of 2014, and then this is the EstimatorPro database that comes with the program when it's first downloaded. Okay, I've loaded up now the template that I'm using to build the estimate, and I want to show you how to access the database that you're going to be using. Go to the last tab in the section by hitting this key. That takes you to a tab called Database Links. You click on Change the Database Link, and it takes us, in this case, to My Construction Company, Management Tools, EstimatorPro databases, which is the same file we were looking at just a little bit ago, and I want to use EstimatorPro DB 140616. Double click on that. In this case it says there's more than one link in this detail sheet, and I want to change the old file that I was working with, and now I've set up a new database link to this estimate. This estimate will be linked to this database up until I change it, if I ever do. Now also notice here I can change my estimate number. Let's go ahead and do that. This estimate number is 14025. Let's go back to the cost breakdown summary. You can see that my estimate is now here and all of my database information is ready to go. Let's look at how to edit a database. I'm going to be using my database, which I'll be happy to provide to EstimatorPro users. There is also a database which comes with the application, and you can and should change the existing databases to match the way you run your business and then save each iteration of the database to your own files using the process we just went through. To access the database, you can select any phase either from the listing here, or you can select it from the tabs. And let's just choose framing material, select add item, and select edit database. That puts me in the database program, and you can see here that I now have framing material DB or database, labor database, deck database. So now all of my tabs are relating to the database. You can also access the databases by clicking on the Show Sheets button and looking at database phases here, or going to Go To Sheet, and I have an alphabetical listing of all my database phases here. Let's take a look at the drywall database. Notice I'm in the drywall database. I can go back to the drywall detail sheet and back to my database by using the features here in the add-ins section of EstimatorPro. Let's add some information to the drywall database. I want to add a feature here called Scalloped Ceiling Texture. It's going to be calculated on a square foot basis, and it's going to cost 42 cents a square foot extra to get the scallops. Now notice how in the quantity section here I put a 1, but it's also possible to put formulas in here that will be transferred over to the estimate and automatically do the calculations for you. And we'll be talking about that a little bit more when we get to the estimate spreadsheet. There are a couple more important features here that I want to discuss. You've seen how easy it is to add an item and the pricing of that item. We also have an option here for a number of suppliers. If you have 2 or 3 or more suppliers that are supplying the product to you, then you can load their pricing in for the various products or services that they're offering. You can add suppliers very simply by inserting a column, and let's call this supplier 2. Note also that I have added here features for 1/2 inch drywall or for 5/8 drywall. These columns can also be used for different sizes of items as well as the suppliers. This can come in real handy when you're working, for instance, with interior doors, or you're working with interior moldings where you may be using different wood species for your moldings, and you want to have the pricing available to you for those different species. Let's go back to the detail sheet that we were looking at and see what the effect has been here of what we've added. Under extras, which is where we added the scalloped ceiling, you can see that I now have scalloped ceiling texture for 42 cents a foot. And down here where we added a supplier, I now have supplier 2 in addition to my standard columns of 1/2 inch, 5/8, and supplier 3. So it's possible just to keep adding information into your databases to make them very specific and particular to the way you operate your business and the way you want to do your estimates. That kind of flexibility is a very important feature of the EstimatorPro application, and it's something that I think you'll find very useful and something that can speed up your estimating process. Okay, about all that's left to do is to save the database that we're working on here. I'm going to go ahead and save this as a different database. We'll save it as a macro-enabled workbook. I want to save this as EstimatorPro DB, let's call it 0701, and we'll do a save. Now when I look in my files, I have the EstimatorPro 140616, which is the one I've been working with, and then here's the one we just changed. Well, that's about it for databases. Of course, there's a lot more to learn, but the best way is just to get in and start using it. And I think you'll find out that it's very intuitive and very easy to use. Next, we're going to be working with the detail sheets a little more. You saw a couple of detail sheets in this session here, but we're going to find out some really amazing ways of using those detail sheets to create the estimates.